Can I just leave this on?
Yeah.
Lead. Dig it. Can I just leave this on? All right. Hello, welcome to the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism, where we attempt to apply logic and reason to religion and politics. I'm here with my wonderful, beautiful co-host, Christy Santiago.
Hi guys, happy Friday. I'm glad you guys joined us. We have some history for you tonight, some analysis, lots of analysis, and some history. I hope you're got your snack, you got your drink. I just ran and got my drink. I don't know what you're drinking, Mac. What are you drinking?
I'm going to be drinking water.
Good for you.
A little bit of water.
It is so hot. So that's good. I'm glad. Water's the best thing you can drink, especially if you're down here. It's just water comes out of you, so like you have to replace it when you walk outside and you're just covered. So yeah. It's always dripping down like here and then dripping like while I'm walking bean. It's so gross. Can't stop it. But I guess most people up north where I'm from, they go through the winters because they have amazing summers, and so do Floridians. But we go through the summers because we can have amazing winters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the opposite.
if I could, I would live like down in Florida and then come up north for the cold winters, like just like that week where there's going to be the worst snow. That's when I want to be here. When it's just cold and ugly outside, I don't want to be here.
Right. And gray and dreary and
fifths of the winter.
Yes.
Yeah. Hate it.
I agree. And I understand because I lived in Iowa and Illinois. So
yeah.
I have personal
Two worst mistakes
we know is bullshit. It doesn't count for anything. Okay.
All right, so it looks like you're up first. Before I let you go, I wanted to fit this in because we didn't plan on this, but it's really important to talk about.
Okay.
Do you mind if I just butt in right now?
Go for it.
As I've started, I'm sorry. Okay. So I'm just gonna read a little bit of this from CNN, real quick, and I'll give you guys the link down in the live chat here. We got some really awesome news. I'm sure Christy heard about it, but we didn't have time to dig into it yet. All right, so the state of Michigan and other defendants have reached a $100 million settlement in the Flint water crisis lawsuit that will provide hundreds of millions in payments to city residents. So it's been a while, right? This started I think back in 2015, when it was Governor Rick Snyder, there it is down there. He decided to switch the water source in Flint, Michigan to save money. And it led to dangerous levels of lead.
Led to.
Ooh.
Get it?
Yeah, that led right into that. Led right in. But yeah, it harmed a lot of their citizens, and it killed multiple people. Yes.
And the injured ones.
If you don't know,
the injured ones are injured for life.
For life.
Lead poisoning changes the brain so it doesn't work properly, and so there's many children who are guaranteed to not have the productive life they would have had they not all ages that were poisoned by lead, and it's forever. Yeah, it's an honest atrocity. It is something this country should be massively embarrassed about.
Yeah, they should have called what's the word I'm looking for? US they should have declared it like
a national emergency.
Yeah, they should. And the US Marine Corps or
the
whatever.
Army Marine Corps.
Yeah, and like taking care of this 5 years ago. Like it should have been fucking immediate.
I agree.
And
there was poisoning. It wasn't just icky water. It was poisoning them.
It was poison. And the best they got was Barack Obama going down there and wetting his lips
the water.
It's just fine. And he didn't drink it. He didn't drink it.
We don't know what they put in there, but I don't think they would allow the president to drink a glass of lead.
Yeah, no. So the whole thing was disgusting. But finally, I think it happened. Well, this was updated today. But yeah, the state of Michigan and other defendants have reached a $600 million settlement. It says nearly 80% of the money will go to those who were younger than 18 at the time of the crisis, according to a news release at the interim co-lead class council for. So yeah, this is good. Well, I'll try to dive into this more so we can get into it more next week. But I wanted to let people know now because we've been waiting for any kind of break for Flint, Michigan for a long time. We have an episode that covers the Flint water crisis.
Yeah, but it's we definitely should cover it again because we've been doing this for it will be 2 years in a couple months.
Yeah.
I'll be 43 next month. Stacy reminded me. I was like, wait, 44. I'm sorry, 44. She made sure to correct me, and I was like, wait. Yeah. Oh God.
How old you say how old you are?
Wow. Stacy just said. Here you are.
I've done that already. So all right. Okay. So that's that. I'm gonna let this go for now, and you can go and take over. Thank you, Christy, for letting me butt in.
Of course, it's a very important topic, and like you said, we'll just have to go over it again. Okay, so for tonight, we have Going Postal, which I kind of did with the amount of history I read. I am so overqualified to be able to tell. I didn't have to do as much. And then after I get done presenting this article or whatever it is called to you, I will be giving you guys homework, actually. It's a video that is going to pick up where I leave off. This is the history of the postal office. And it's a channel called Knowing Better. I'm sure you guys have all been to it. He did a really fun video. I laughed a couple times. He's pretty silly and very educational. And I found that I didn't need to cover any of that if he has something out there that's more entertaining than I'm going to present with you. And that way, if you want to watch that when you get done with Leah tonight or another time, and then come back and leave a comment, you can leave a comment that you watched that too and like what you thought about mine and then his having so much information. And then you can also go online and order a book called How the Post Office Created America by Winifred Gallagher. It's pretty interesting and it's not expensive. It's like if you buy it used, you can get it for $2. So it's out there for anyone. It's a really old book, so it's very inexpensive. You might even find it at garage sales. A lot of people, I'm a Valley girl now. A lot of girls and boys would get it when as a reading from school, to learn about the post office. So it's been around for a while. All right, the history of the U.S. Post Office and contemporary post office thoughts. So, okay, I'd like to start out with a bit of history, as I do so often. Before the loosely collected communities on the east coast of our nation even became a nation, the colonies were occupied by the British, which we all know. There weren't roads, trains, or even public horse-drawn buggies to get around for the commons. One would walk or ride a horse or have a horse-drawn buggy. Our national government was weak at best. It was in name and in the big city of DC. It wasn't really anywhere else. It didn't have a hold on anyone. Nobody called themselves Americans. The national government was weak at best, and people identified with their state first and their country second. I'm sure most of you guys know that, especially since learning about the Civil War on your own, which I hope you guys have done. You find that that's definitely the fact. They had their own, each state had their own money, and I'm sure you guys don't know that, or already know that, so I don't have to go over that. When then the first post office was opened, and people across the continent had for the first time a direct link to the federal government and the rest of the world. And in New England colonies that preceded the United States, infrastructure was nearly non-existent. It was even considered a great achievement when people could finally travel from New York City to Boston in under a week. I could not live there. No. No. Oh, hold on. Max, say something. You look so fly in your glasses. I love it.
But
Okay,
they're broken. I have
but
to
they're
say,
so cute.
like,
Oh, I didn't even see that.
they're very broken. That's why I don't wear them on screen.
Oh, you're adorable. All right. Well, I mean, it happens. It does. Okay. The British weren't really interested at this time to build infrastructure, the infrastructure that would be needed to build roads, make it a connected country. There were people that lived out in the country that would never have even seen a British officer in their life, never got mail, no outside, their community only. So the British Crown Postal Service was slow, expensive, and mostly worried about their postal links to get from the colonies to Britain across the Atlantic Ocean. You can see how this isn't the post office that we have today at all. Before the American Revolution, there was unofficial black market ways and private systems, of course, of getting mail around. But the legitimate federal government, the group of men that would eventually declare American independence, would realize that in order to properly coordinate and collaborate the member colonists, they needed a way to effectively communicate, which I agree, it's pretty smart of them. Therefore, surprisingly, the United States Post Office was founded almost an entire year before the United States itself was founded. What? The century following its founding, the US had a huge problem. The US expanded in territories faster than it did in people. So you can imagine. For much of US's history, and still today, we have a lot of vast wilderness. There's a lot in the middle of the country, right before you get to the mountains and cross over into California, between the Appalachian and the flanking for the other mountain range. There's a lot of wilderness. I lived in Iowa. There's a lot of wilderness. Were you going to say something?
The Rockies. Is that what you're trying to think of?
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Can't remember. All right. Oh, right. California only hit a population of 1 million around 1890, which blows my mind. By 1890, the nation as a whole had a population of over 60 million. So it was really hard to get to California. Between California and the Appalachian Mountains during the early 1800s, there was hardly anything, especially roads. California might as well have been a freaking island at the time. To get to there, California, most people would take a ship from New York all the way down to Panama and then get off the ship. Isn't that crazy? Go across Panama and get on another ship and go all the way up to San Francisco. So it was arduous, and that was easier and more affordable and safe, way safer than going across the continent. It was the wild. So I think that that story, I'm just so glad I don't live in that time. I'm so glad there are really hardy people that came before us, really. That is hard, and people didn't have birth control, so there were children all over, and
Yep.
There's a lot.
Route 66 to get your kicks out on.
Yeah, that's a good song. It's a really good song. So anyway, rather than even attempt the US by land, they would take that ship, like I just told you. And all the way until the 1850s and 1860s, United States Post Office was literally the only way to communicate long distance. If you had a post office, you were connected. If you didn't have a post office, you were quite literally alone. Therefore, one of the first steps for a new town was to appeal to the federal government for a post office. Getting a post office was immensely beneficial. I think that this was, for many reasons, that America has been successful. I think that this is definitely one of them. The post office came and connected us as, people of a nation. We see the US today as a very nationalistic nation. Yeah, we do. But remember that most citizens of this earlier time, and for so long, state came before country. However, having a brick and mortar representation of the power and benefits of having a legitimate federal government helped tie the nation together. The USPS did not stop there just with post office buildings. Newspapers shipped for free or nearly free, and this revolutionized the spread of information. And Noam Chomsky and Howard Zinn both have said a couple times that I've heard them say that this time period was the only time in America's history besides the late 60s and early 70s, like that little 8 years right there, the only time that we've had an actual free press. And so I could see that it would be beneficial, to people. And I don't mean in everything, because people sold snake oil, all kinds of stuff in these magazines. People would get sick from things that would spoil on the way. So not everything was good. It wasn't good for every color of person either, that's for sure. In the 1850s, this meant that someone in brand new Houston, Texas, so Houston, Texas has just been formed, and they came as an immigrant, which most people did, unless they were born here from the immigrants or they were native at this time. They'd come in through New York, as most people did, and then, they're building new towns out in Texas, and land was cheap, so they would have to travel there, but they didn't want to give up their city life, the information, the education. So this was a way that they were able to connect with the outside world, and it's super, super important. And the fact that it was free for them to get these things, they didn't pay for any of them, was pretty awesome too, I think. This is how Americans across the nation could read about national politics and stay informed, and were able to be that proverbial informed electorate that you needed. And I think that because of it being an actual free press at that small little window in the 1850s, 1860s, maybe even just a little bit later, I think that scared a lot of the ruling class then, and that's why things changed, which is, it's like a circle. It just keeps happening. Okay. Let's see. I already said that. I want to say they did gossip about. I just thought it was a fun little tidbit. They did gossip about high society in their papers. So like the wealthy of that neighborhood or city, they would have columns to talk about them like it was some soap opera that they could follow, like Princess Di and her husband in the 80s. So, a lot of older women followed that then. It's the same, I guess. They wanted to forget about their problems, and live in someone else's life, but many times they weren't true. So they're doing, they saw two people walking and talking, oh, they're dating, that kind of thing. Same thing that happens now. Go figure. Okay. And out of this federal program called the USPS, the country probably would have stayed on the state first path and country second. Also at this time, the post office did not make a profit, as it was a common good, is what they called it. And it was not supposed to make money. It wasn't for, everybody that worked there got a salary, from stamps and the money that would come in, but it wasn't, you wouldn't become rich ever. And we didn't have any programs or health insurance or anything like that. So it was just your wage. That's what you would get. It was there to make frontier towns of 1,000 or less people as similar feeling as possible to living on the East Coast town of 100,000 people or more. 150 years ago, plus I'd say a little bit, it took nearly a month and a half to reach many parts of the frontier, if you could even get there at all. There's so many records of people leaving the East Coast and leaving as a couple with your children and a couple other families even, and never hearing from them again. They just, nobody knows where they went. And I'm sure if they died along the way or something like that, nobody would ever find them. By the time that place got built up, animals would have eaten everything, you know, it would have been nothing there. So again, I'm so glad I don't live at this time. The more I read about the late 1800s and early 1900s, I'm very glad that I came way later. So these information links became also physical links, linking humans to other humans, and they were able to spread out about this country. The frontier was still the most difficult to deal with, and a railroad was built in 1860. Its rails went all the way from Western Missouri from New York. So from New York to Western Missouri. The Pony Express picked up the mail in Western Missouri, and it took it on horseback over the tough terrain there were no roads. So they had to, they had to bring their compass and very flawed maps. So they're, like I said, they're just rugged people. They had to be. As Knowing Better calls this, and I love that he says this, he says it was the Pony Express with the actual ponies and guys riding it. It was a novel like the Concorde jet as of its time. I just think that's so true, because the Concorde jet, you know, its front would bend down and go really fast, and yeah, that had a very short-lived. There was no room in it. There's a video of Sting on YouTube. It was very expensive. Regular people could not afford it. And he wanted to try it. It went Mach, you know, it makes this big boom, and you get to California from New York in just a couple hours. They were so down with it. And it just couldn't make money. It was too expensive, and it would be real.
That's a cool fact, though. I wish I.
It is a cool fact. Yeah, you should. The Concorde, just look up the Concorde jet, you know, and just look at the pictures of it, and you have boys, they'll love it. It's a really cool story, how so much innovation happened, and then it was like, okay, but we can't use it because it's not appropriate. It's too expensive, and people don't like their windows and their house broke and come home from work and all their windows are busted out. They're not too happy about that. I don't blame them. The Pony Express picked up the mail in Western Missouri, as I said, and took it on horseback over the rough terrain. And in only 10 days, the Pony Express could get from the Atlantic to the Pacific. This was friggin' unbelievable. 10 days from New York to California. Once mail arrived at the end of the rail line in West Missouri, the Pony Express, aka a rider on horseback, would take a mail pouch heading west at 20 miles per hour, which was full speed. Then every 10 or so miles, they'd stop at a Pony Express station. There they'd switch to a fresh horse, and every 75 miles, they'd switch riders to keep the mail traveling 24 hours a day. So all day, this mail was just on its way to California. This didn't come cheap. It was $5, which is the equivalent today between 130 and 150 for a 1.5 ounce letter. So, but many people paid for it. They'd save up to send something out to family that were trying to make it during the gold rush, per se, you know. Telegraph did exist at this time, but it didn't stretch all the way across the country. One of the most famous rides of the short-lived Pony Express was following the 1860 elections. The Eastern line ended a bit further west than before at Fort Kearny, Nebraska. So following Lincoln's win, riders set out west using the same relay system I mentioned before to Fort Churchill, Nevada, where the telegraph lines picked back up. Therefore, The West Coast newspapers were able to publish Lincoln's win just 7 days and 17 hours behind the East Coast papers. That's pretty brilliant. I mean, I'm impressed. I couldn't do that. I couldn't. I need some air conditioning. I'm dying. Just 2 years earlier, it took at least 17 days for this exact journey. So in 2 years, they were able to innovate in their minds without technology, just horses and a train, which train is technology, technically. This is amazing. I really was pretty impressed by it. With the completion of the telegraph completely across the country in 1861, the Pony Express closed its doors after just 19 months of operation. So you can see why it was like a novel, you know, like just a fun thing that happened, which is pretty cool to talk about. I mean, 7 days and 17 hours is impressive to get news in a country this big on train and horseback.
It's crazy how much we hear about the Pony Express, like kind of like growing up.
Because it was
like,
such a tiny
little. We don't
little
talk
thing.
about the post office like at all,
Right.
like in high school.
No.
At all.
Mm-mm.
That's so strange.
Especially the times you went to high school in what, the 2000s, early 2000s?
Yeah.
Yeah, 95. I'm class of 95, so yeah, they wouldn't want to do those things. They wouldn't want to tell us things like that. In 1863, the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad happened. In 1862, just 1 year earlier, the first post office sorting room was created on the Eastern Rail, so it could be sorted during the trip, picking up and dropping off along the way. A staffer would sort the mail while on the move in the same way it was done in the bricks and mortar post office sorting rooms on land. When it arrived at the last stop in West Missouri, it was all sorted and ready for loading into drawn buggies now, because Pony Express was over, into horse-drawn buggies headed for different destinations because they would be in big packs. That they did it on the way. They thought, how can we make this faster? People wanted it faster. In the coming decades, the post office gave a huge part of their income to subsidies and payments to railroads across the country. To move mail, all of them were to move mail. Most line to rural communities, so that's train track to rural communities, would have never been possible without the post office contracts. Therefore, the post office was instrumental in physically connecting America's small towns around America and to the outside world. Many families had left, so it was nice to be able to, even if that kind of mail took longer to get, it was nice that it could get to New York and out to them within 10 days. Civil aviation. This is the cool part. So 1920s, aviation. Aviation became huge, and once peace was settled after World War I, aviation almost became irrelevant, and almost really fast too, because what we don't drop bombs, so what are we supposed to do with these things? So just a few months after World War I, actually, the first regularly scheduled airmail route between DC and New York, so just a small one, began. But that was not good enough for Americans. They're like, well, they have it, we want it. You know, the whole Joneses, I mean, how you got to keep up with them. By 1925, airmail routes stretched to hundreds of towns all over the US. Just like with the railroad, post office subsidies allowed for air service to towns that would never have been profitable for passengers. So they were making more by flying mail than flying people. If they weren't flying people, they didn't have passenger planes. I mean, 1 or 2 people could go, maybe 3, depending on how much stuff you were bringing. They could carry bombs, but they were military planes. They weren't for people. Oh my gosh, give me that. Nom nom. I'm so jealous. Oh, ice cream is delicious. Mm. Mac, making my mouth water. Whew. The airmail service grew to become the largest in the world. So I didn't know. Something I learned. Connected countries in the world, and its legacy still survives today. Many of the airmail lines that were started in the beginning after World War I, many of those airlines, Delta, American Airlines, what was the other one? United Airlines, this is how they got their start, was by being postal mail couriers. And then they thought, well, we could carry people, make them a little bit bigger, and we can make even more money. And they did. So that was smart and innovative. It's easy to forget that just 200 years ago, only 8 million people lived in the US, 20 states, and 4 territories. That's it, just 200 years ago. And the homework that I will share with you guys in chat right now, because I'm giving you guys homework, is this video right here. And you guys watch that, and it will kind of pick it up from there. He does touch on 1 or 2 of the things. Pony Express, he does a lot, but he was funnier about it. Mine was just the facts. Now, my contemporary post office thoughts. There's a lot of propaganda going on. There's a lot of people freaking out about things. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. The post office has been, the conservatives, whether Democrat or Republican or libertarian, it doesn't matter. In this country, there is a lot of wealthy that see this big thing, this conglomerate thing with all this money in it. In 1910, they started doing banking, public banking. I do public banking here, Tampa. It's for Tampa Bay area. So that bank that I go to, the money that they lend out only goes back into this area. So I know my money is not being used for, it's local. I'm keeping it local. Now, the post office was able to do this federally and cheap. And after the 20s and the fall of the stock market crash, they wanted something safe. So many people were banking with the post office. Plus, you went there. In the 1800s, you didn't get mail brought to your house. You had to go down to the post office, and each individual person had to talk to the postmaster general of the office. That you just had to wait in line. And so imagine during World War II, which Knowing Better talks about, is really funny. I'm sorry, World War I and World War II. The every day looking like a run on the bank. Like you pull up on your horse to start work at the post office, and there's just a line of women because they're waiting to hear from their men during these wars, and they have to go and see they physically go down to see if any mail came from them. So it's funny to see how it evolved. Then they would go out, old letters. They would say, the third house on the right with blue flowers outside unless it's winter. Like so funny. We didn't have zip codes or anything like that. So I remembered that. That was really funny. Back to the icky stuff, the stuff that is going on. I looked up a lot, and I can't find anything proving that mailboxes are being locked. That's not true. As far as I can find, they're not being locked. They're being locked, but that doesn't mean they're not used. Now, these are pictures that people take that they're not showing you like a video going up to that machine. It does have a lock on it, but it just means you can put one letter in at a time. It's a new system that they used ingenuity and that lever that pulls down to keep people from reaching in and grabbing mail. Now you can open it just enough for one letter, and if you have 5, you have to do it 5 times. So it was a way, without having anyone around, to hopefully stop people from stealing mail. If that's something someone wanted to do, it would be really hard to do now with these new lock boxes. So they're not locked so no one can't use them. So that's what I found about that. And there were actually lots of the blue mailboxes that you put your letters in. You stop by a grocery store and one's outside and you throw your mail in. There were lots of those in this one yard, and it's a picture that CNN's used, MSNBC has used, and that place refurbishes them. Come on, guys, we could do better. We could do so much better. Media literacy is so important. So that really is frustrating, because it is true that people want to destroy the post office. It is true. There's a lot of money in it, and it's not for profit. It's not, it is now, it just wasn't originally. If you watch Knowing Betters, or you want to go online and look up the history of the post office, it's very fascinating to watch different people come in and do what they did. Nixon does lots of things to the post office, and so does Bush and Reagan. And unfortunately, Bernie Sanders signed those last two that decimated. They use policy to make sure that it is going to collapse without doing something to collapse it immediately. Now, this has been something that's been going on since 1910. They just couldn't stand, that there's all this money right there and they can't get their hands on it. Now, I do have to add that the post office has to, by law, go to every single person. If there's a citizen or someone in this country that's here that can receive mail, they have to deliver it to the address you're in. They have to go to every single residence in this country. The private companies do not. They don't have to. So the numbers I looked up on that, which were pretty interesting, it's like 41 to 43%, depending on the year, it fluctuates, of Amazon or FedEx or UPS goes to the US Post Office, so they can deliver it, because they cannot go to these rural areas because they're not gonna. They don't have to. They're not going to. So they use the US Post Office. So if they could make it private and be one of the people who's on the board, they're going to make even more money. So yeah, there's a lot of shady stuff going on, and there are a lot of the machines that, count the mail coming in. Those have been taken apart, and their letters, post office workers have shared these letters saying, you guys are to take this apart or turn it off. You're not allowed to turn it back on. It's not to be plugged back in. So that part is true, but the locking them so people can't use them, I couldn't find anything that actually proves that. I could only find stories that showed that it was locked so that you could use one at a time letter. And so I have to debunk that one. And if somebody has something to show me otherwise, I would love to see it. I want to be right about that. But it's sad when I see so many big news channels saying things that I can look up myself and see that it's not. And I know that shouldn't surprise me. And I know that that's the way that it is, but it sucks. Makes me mad. So hope you do your homework and watch that extra video. He's funny. Subscribe to him. And you're welcome, Alan. I see you down there. Hi, everybody. Brantley and Landon. Hi, Landon. And Alan and I met in a super nerdy, some stuff was still above my head, black space, and yeah, it was pretty awesome. It was easy to follow along because it was a conversation. And an older guy that knows it very well, he doesn't have to go, oh God, how am I going to explain this? He just knows it. So it was really, really easy to understand. Yeah. Nice. And I was like, come to mine. And so thank you, Alan. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Alan seems cool. He's new here, so thanks.
Yes, super smart.
Yeah, very cool. So I just wanted to
hold on. Alan accidentally became a missile scientist. He wanted to be an artist. He is an artist, but he accidentally. I said, nobody accidentally becomes missile scientist. No, I'm sorry, don't buy it. You're just too smart. You're an overachiever, and you should admit it. Okay, your turn.
Cool. I just wanted to point out, to just piggyback on the last part that you have focused on, how there really is a lot of profit to be made.
Yes, a lot.
There's
think a lot. About what Amazon. What is the other one? Amazon and FedEx and UPS. Think about what they make, and they don't go to 40% or around 40% of the nation. So think about that plus the 40%. That's what you have to be making. Yeah. Right.
And they're more expensive.
Yes, but if it was private, it would be more expensive.
Because they're trying to make a profit, right? It's not a public good, but this is what you get in capitalism, right? Like
Right. Unfortunately.
right. So this isn't necessarily a knock on capitalism. That's just how capitalism works, right? And the more capitalism like the more capitalism that you want,
Yeah, the more
the
unfettered.
more you have. I'm sorry.
The more unfettered it becomes.
Yeah, the more unfettered it becomes. But the way I was going to say it, because I usually say it like that, is
I know you do.
just the more you have to capitalize on, right? So we're living in a time now that like there's not a lot that you can like innovatively make money on. So you have to try to find other ways of which to make money, and like new or just different ways to make money, which is what UPS and then FedEx and Amazon have done. They've started to like try to basically take over what the United States Postal Service does, and that's just the way capitalism works if it's not regulated to a certain point. Just to make those connections for anyone who just wants or needs to hear it, like we already have that, had and have, with our healthcare system, right? And that's what they want to do with like Social Security, is like get away with it, or like go away from it, or just capitalize on it somehow, like go private with it. That's just how people make money. And most capitalists don't see that as wrong, that they just see that as, they're just trying to make money. Sure, maybe it's greedy, but that's how I work and make my money in this meritocracy, whatever. But on the other side of things, you may want some more public goods, right? You may want some things to be just easier, not for profit, just there for everyone to use, like schools, like healthcare, like Social Security, like unemployment, right? You shouldn't just have to have unemployment insurance ever like taken out of your check every month. Like tax helps pay for public goods and information for people and services. And the US Postal Service is one that predates the nation, like Christy told us here over the last 45 minutes. This is, everyone has to decide for themselves if they think that this is an important public service. And I think it is. I know Christy thinks that it is, but yeah, this I think this is a really good example of what you can think about to really figure out where your political views lie and what you think taxes should be spent on, because there's a lot more than we even talk about. But this is one that we really do overlook a lot, and I think that's on purpose because of the.
Well, I did find out, by the way, on that the U.S. Post Office has not been funded by taxpayer money since 1983 or 84. Not because Nixon in the 70s gave them so many years to make themselves solvent. They had to spend $5.3 billion a year because they had to fund all of their employees' retirement 75 years in advance. No other corporation on this planet that I know of, especially in this country, has to do that. I've also found that I think it was 2/3 of multinational corporations do not pre-fund their employees' retirement at all, like at all. So the fact that they made them do this, and they were able to do it, they were able to turn a profit, they had no problem. They thought email was going to kill the post office. They thought, I always think something's going to kill the post office, but we need the post office. That's how most elderly people's medicine comes. Like, come on, guys. I think that it should be considered a common good, and information should be free. So I think that when we get that handful of mail and you see all that junk mail that's in there, all the ads from everything, somebody paid for those to come to your house. So you might not like them, but if they didn't work, they wouldn't use them. So you're helping the post office stay afloat, so don't bitch about them. Just put them in the garbage or recycling. Use them to light your fire when you have a fire pit.
Free energy.
Yeah. Cook pigeons.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, no,
I
good
am
point.
ready to move on if you're
Yeah.
ready. Okay. All right. Our next topic, and supposedly last topic, is the Democratic Convention. National Convention.
Exactly.
Say what?
What you just said, the Democratic Convention.
Yeah, that.
Sorry,
for Freudian flip there.
Yeah. It was very depressing. It was. It made me feel hopeless.
I didn't watch all, what was it, 11 and a half hours of Democratic conventions.
I waited till the next day, so I was one day behind.
I started, I think, on day 2 or 3, and I didn't make it all the way through it. I made over half, and I just ran out of time. And then I tried to look up some other speeches, just the speeches.
At one point, while you're yawning, at one point they show, oh gosh, what was it? I'll have to, it just fluttered through my mind and left before I could. At one point they did, and I'll tell you when I think of it in a minute.
All right.
Yes. Okay.
Well, that had quite the lineup. For each day, really. And they had senators, they had representatives, they had activists, they had people from the Democratic side, they had people from the Republican side. If you didn't know that already, I'm sorry. They had John Kasich. He was a real big deal to have on there. He got 4 minutes of talk time, which is 4 times longer than AOC got. If that tells you the direction that they're pandering, well, if it doesn't, I don't know what will tell you the direction that they're pandering to. But yeah, and Kamala Harris spoke at least 2 nights of those 4, and went on from the 17th to the 20th, which was yesterday. And I don't have a lot of quotes. I really have a lot of opinion on it, really, though.
Analysis. You have analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, from what I saw, which was not even a quarter of it. But again, there was like 11 and a half hours worth of material to watch, including commercials on the YouTube. Like, it was.
Yeah, I put it at like 2 times fast. So I put it at 2 times fast.
Ooh.
So, all through all of that, and then when a speech would come on, I'd leave it at 1.25 fast.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I
want to understand, but I can't watch all of the like pretty pictures. So I remembered what it was. A girl's picture was shown on the big screen who had been abused by Epstein, right? And the next person to come out and do their speech was fucking Bill Clinton. Like, can you not see yourself? What's wrong with you? How many times was he on that plane? No. Like, grow. I don't know. It was just, yeah.
It's pretty disgusting.
Yeah. Almost like in your face. Like, we don't really care. We're gonna do what we want.
Yeah, Bill Clinton really shouldn't have been invited at all.
No.
No, not at this point. Not at like this point, like 2 years ago, like when we got a sniff of it. No,
I liked
yeah.
Carter. Carter did a good job.
Oh yeah, I didn't get to see Carter actually.
Yeah, you'll enjoy him.
So that's
He's
bummer.
just a sweet old man.
I did get to hear, and I recognized her voice because I was just listening to it. Emma Gonzalez.
Yes, and we theoretically says yes. Colin fucking Powell was there. Yeah. There, see, they have weapons of mass destruction. This guy.
Applied us into a war criminal.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. This is what we want for our country.
No.
Vote blue no matter who, right?
Ew.
So.
Hey, listen,
it
you
looks
guys.
like you choked on like a horse.
That face that I just made when you hear anything we were just talking about in the last like 2 minutes, there is a channel on YouTube called Settle for Biden. And they make actual good arguments, but they don't lie. They don't lie. Because they say it's either neo-fascism or neoliberalism. Which one do you want to fight? And they make good points. So I think I like to keep my mind open. You know, I'm like, oh God, I really don't want to settle for Biden. But that's when that happens, when I don't really want to, probably because I disagree. So if I disagree with it, I really should see it. So, and then I watched it and was like, this channel's really good. So I think, you know, yeah, they don't lie. They tell it like it is, all the things he's done wrong, all the votes he voted on the wrong side of history, policies they don't go wrong, but then they also show what Trump's, you know, how he feels about that particular topic, and it's like, oh God, Biden. But then afterwards, I'm like, no, no, still no. He has to earn it. What would it take for you to vote for Biden? What would it take? Like, would you have to be guaranteed that would happen?
I want to premise this with, I am very much Kyle Kalinskian when it comes to this topic. I want to be very principled.
I agree with his whole video on this.
Yeah, like which one? But yeah, if he will give us a like firm plan, or like just say, for instance, okay, I'm going to fight for Medicare for all. I will do that. I would vote for him. If he said, okay, I'm going to try to fix how we vote in this country by, amongst other things, making one of my biggest fucking issues that I'm going to really like nail home even in the first 100 days, ranked choice voting.
Yep.
I would vote for him. Either one of those. You just pick one of those. I'll go for it. I've heard that he's considering maybe fighting to get money out of politics and get rid of like super PACs.
Right.
I need to look into that if that's the case.
I don't feel like he would, but maybe Kamala would.
Maybe Kamala would.
Maybe she would.
I feel like she try to run a grassroots campaign for like 5 minutes, or like literally like maybe a month.
Yeah.
And then I can't do this.
Yeah. And she was like, well, I mean, that money came in and it gave her, she had more opportunities. And with more money comes more opportunities, and she could get to more people.
Right.
You know, it just is capitalism at its finest.
Yeah. So saying that one again, Kyle Kalinskian here, is I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Like if Joe Biden came up and said, I'm going to expand like Social Security, I wouldn't believe it.
Right.
Also, that's not one of my main things. But yeah, there's certain things that you hear from Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. It's like, all right, like I super don't believe it. Like, I'm sorry, I'm still not voting for you because you picked something that, like, no way, bro. But if he wanted to pander hard enough to even just say that he would go for Medicare for all, like Bernie's bill, I'd go for it. Ranked choice voting. Um, he's not even nailed down on like the Green New Deal or even Tulsi's version of it, the Off Act. Like, there's a lot of really good legislation out there that is very progressive. And he's not picking any progressive legislation, but they're pandering to the right. No, I don't like. Again,
they're not just pandering; they're like bootlicking to the right.
They are bootlicking.
They have conservative war criminals and wouldn't let AOC talk and propagandized her video. Like, they edited it to make her look like she was saying something that she wasn't saying.
Who was it?
AOC.
Oh,
they cut her off at 60 seconds saying that she endorses Bernie Sanders. And so the internet went fucking crazy thinking she has to, because this is how it goes every time we have an election. Bernie has these delegates. They're his. He has delegates. Now, she, months ago, when he was still running, he hasn't taken his name out of it. He's just paused it. So he still has those delegates. She promised that she would second that. There's going to be people that third it and fourth it and fifth it and sixth it. It's the way that it works. Now, CNN knows this, or they should, right?
And they smeared
her, right? Because if they would have kept it going, because she got 60 seconds to make a pre-recorded video that they could, watch and cut where they want. That had to be 60, but she didn't end there. There's more to it. So it wasn't a lot. It ended up being like 99 seconds, or it's hard. It's hard to say what you need to say,
and honestly, they didn't need to make it shorter. Like, I did listen to those commercials that they had on. They were just repeating. They literally did the same commercials, just promoting their own channel, like for Lester Holt. There were multiple times where I heard the same long commercial for their own programs 2 times in a row. Multiple times I heard this. So they didn't need to cut it short. They didn't need to make any of this shorter. Right. It's not like they weren't ready to play pre-recorded videos. We're waiting for people to get back on stage, maybe you could imagine. No, they just didn't want to show that, or have more speakers, more people who are more progressive,
like the future, right? The new people that just came in, the freshmen, that's the future of the Democratic Party, and their voters in the future are going to be our millennials and our Zoomers, who are so much more progressive than the boomers. So I guess that does give me hope, that alone. And I did get asked recently, when will a progressive be happy? That's a good question. It's a really good question, because I have to honestly say there will probably never be a time where we just say, okay, it's good enough, we'll stop. We'll always strive to make it better. If there's a problem, we'll want to make it better. We'll want to talk about it, right? Do the bare minimum. Let me sign your pledge. Let me, send that out to friends. People need to know about that. The bare minimum.
It's in the name.
It's in the name. So, let's say in my perfect world, it would be Medicare for all, money out of politics, and that be in our Constitution. I really need to have a constitutional convention to get that. And you can do that if you sign up for wolfpack.com, wolf-pack.com. Publicly funded education that waives all the debt that's still owed, and publicly funded elections and ranked choice voting. So that's it. So when these happen, does that mean that I'm just going to be done? No, there's a lot more things I want done. I want public transportation. I want to work for to make sure that homeless is not a word that it will be in our history. What's a problem with someone who's homeless? They need a home. Well, we have tons sitting open, and we can make a house, a one family home into 2 homes, make tiny homes. We can make tiny homes. We can 3D print tiny homes. Like there's so much we can do. No, I will never be happy. I'll never want to settle. There's always going to be more. So that answer did not make that person happy. But
yeah, and like I get what you're saying. Like he just needs to come get our votes, right?
Yeah, work
That's
it.
Come get our votes. Like we haven't voted yet. We don't want to vote for Biden, but if you give us a reason, we're like, all right, we'll do it.
You're just in Florida, but it's not for the president part wasn't on it. It was for all local.
So what?
We just voted here. It was due this past Tuesday. Yeah, this week, the Tuesday that just passed. That was voting day here in Florida, but it was for all of Florida. Like it was Florida ballot. So our local, our teachers, our judges, all of that. Oh God, the homework for that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Coming quick. Yeah, I'm going to look into like getting a mail-in ballot, and hopefully soon.
Please do. Please do. Yeah, you do have to apply for it. And I did want to say that if you guys don't like what's happening with the post office or these elections or anything, and you want to send a letter or you want to send a message to a governor or president, mail it. Mail it. Don't email them. Write them a letter. Now you're taking care of the post office, because if you're not paying for it, you're not paying for it. Like it's not being paid for. You're not paying for it now. So and you still get it, of course. That's the part that your taxes pay for. The not taxes, they self-govern, but that's what part Congress controls that they get paid for, is the delivering that we don't have to actually pay for. So if you want to help the post office and also help make your local area, your wider state area, or your country better, write them a letter. And I guess that channel, Knowing Better, he says it's called franking. So I did look that up, and franking is when you send letters to governor or senator, and it's kind of a little bit like trolling, but much older. And it also helps the post office because they're getting paid every time you do this. Now, senators and governors, if you work for the federal government, you do not have to pay for postage at all. The USPS is free to you. So they also reply more often to handwritten letters than they do to emails. So there's that too. If you make it look really crazy, put your picture on it, those are the ones that they pick out, because they're like, oh, this is really pretty, or this is interesting. And there's, of course, staffers that open it and read it. And if they like it, they'll take it and be like, hey, I think you should pay attention to this one. So that's smart. Then you can help the post office and annoy a senator. They should be scared and annoyed by us.
We should start a hashtag for the post office and make a hashtag for USPS that you just write on a letter. Make it a written hashtag.
Yes.
There you go. So
oh my gosh. So okay, I know
this video and hashtag for USPS. And then tell people to write it down.
Yes.
There we
and
go.
then share it everywhere. Put it on the outside of your envelopes. Speaking of outside of the envelopes and being overqualified for talking about that story, in the 1800s, people, I went to high school in the 90s. We would pick up the phone at a payphone and dial collect our mom. And when it says leave your name after the beep, who's calling, and we'd say a message real quick, like I'm ready to be picked up, real fast. So my mom didn't have to pay for it, and I didn't have any money. So that's how we would do it. Well, people are smart. So when you had to go to the post office to get your mail, you only paid for the ones you took. So you could go through them and then pay for the ones you took. So now it's being paid for to send it and being paid for when you pick it up. So 2 times. And people would be smart enough to write their message on the outside of the envelope. And so they could read it and just hand it back. As the funny fact about old school American post office stories. Yeah.
Nice. I didn't know that one.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. But why wouldn't they? I did the same thing with the phone, which is really I think you guys will enjoy the Knowing Better video.
TOLLECT.
Yeah.
Wait, do we have to cut that part out?
Right. It's a trademark.
Sorry,
you can't say that. They own it. Yeah, I did. I watched all of it, and I feel like it's very sad, very sad. So I'm glad that I could kind of like talk about it tonight, the whole thing. I feel, yeah, I do actually feel more hopeful. I always do after talking to you and like kind of mushing it all out and stirring it up, seeing what what I learned this week. Yeah, I do. And it's just a lot right now. For one, like Gup said, one of our viewers, and part of the LEAH squad. They don't like progressives. The Democratic Party is becoming like the late 90s, early 2000s Republicans. That's what we're watching it happen. It's going to be really interesting, to look back at this time when we're in our 80s and 90s. It's going to be fascinating.
I'm going to do something stupid well before I get there.
No, you're not, actually. That's not happening. I'll chain you to the chair. Not wiping your ass. You're on your own.
You're going to have to. It'll get caked. All right. All right. So before we hop off of this topic, even, I want to further give an analysis because I tried to give like a little bit of a summary, and I want to like bitch about it just a little bit more. I'm sorry. So what I really saw from any of the video that I watched and from the audio that I listened to was like my 3 least favorite things. I saw most of the speakers, even if they were referencing something bad like George Floyd's death or a Parkland shooting, they were smiling in the cringiest fucking ways. It was really disgusting. Hated that. I loved hearing Emma Gonzalez from the Parkland shooting, Stone Douglas. That was a really great video, and what they did with the climate change video before that, I can't remember who spoke. It was really good. There were really good videos that got to your heart and made you want to care about the issues. That's good. That's important. But that's like the most of what we got was just emotional pandering to really, really easy topics or identity politics. And obviously everyone knows that like that annoys me. But again, what made me really disgusted is when like Kamala Harris would like mention like the protest or George Floyd. She just had this huge smile on her face because she's on TV and she's gonna be VP and I'm addressing the nation. Like you're talking about something sensitive and you're saying it like a movie star trying to get a role in a movie. It's just like, it was really, really cringy and it felt super disrespectful to me. That's how it looked. And it looked like that was 3/4 of the guests that I saw. It's just, they're just putting on a show and they have to have smiling faces because they want to excite everyone. And that's also why they don't bring up what they're going to do to help with the coronavirus and people who are going to lose their homes in this coming homeless crisis. They didn't talk about that. because that's not happening grandiose, right? What they did talk about that was negative was Donald Trump, because it's easy. So almost every single fucking guest just said Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad. And it's like, we fucking get it. Like, that's your competition. We get that. We know what you're against. Tell us what you're for. And we got some of what they're for, right? They're for doing better with the environment. Maybe not the Green New Deal. That's way too far left, and way too like proactive. We want some like gun laws to change. We want sensible gun laws. Like Republicans can say that they want sensible gun laws.
Most of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Most regular citizens, yeah.
They can say it, or they can also mean it. They can, like, any Republican can want sensible gun laws. That's the exact thing you want to say after shooting, and you're a Republican. Is either we need to enforce the sensible gun laws that we have, or, well, we need some sensible gun laws. Like, they speak like moderates or moderate Republicans. And it's infuriating. Like, we just have two major right-wing parties. That's the other thing that I need someone to fucking fight for. Yeah. Is that we need more parties. We don't just need a third party. We need more parties.
Oh, I 100%.
Because we can't keep doing this lesser of two evils thing. That's the third thing that I heard throughout this whole convention is Trump bad. So we need to beat him. And the only way to beat him is to vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. That's the only thing we can do. That isn't true. I want to make this super clear again, but I really want this time, I really want people to get it. That's not true. That is a narrative, right? The more people who say it, the stronger the narrative is, and the more it has a likely of being true.
Right.
Everyone could just start saying tomorrow that, you know what, we really don't like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. If I see these numbers go up, I'm going to vote third party. I'm going to vote third party. I'm going to, maybe you should, or will you say like, hey, if I start hearing more people around me saying that they're going to vote third party come what, November 4th? Is that it?
Yeah, November 3rd.
Third or 4th?
Yeah, for sure.
Third. When we get there, I'm going to vote third party. You know what? I want to vote third party. I think I'm just going to vote third party because I hear a lot of my friends are going to do that. And we need a third party in here anyways. Because what do we fucking bitch about between
November
2016 and 2017? What are we going to bitch about in 2020 to 2021? Wish we had a better choice. I wish we didn't have this stupid two-party system where we have to vote for the lesser of two evils. Well, we only do that because we believe it when someone tells us. That's all we have. We just believe a narrative being spouted out to us. Like this is something that goes back to like any of the atheists here, just kind of listening to a narrative like they're just, you know, any kind of religious thinking that you just have to go by the doctrine because that's the narrative, right? You just need to believe this because this is true. Like your views on like on the gay community. It's like it's bad because God says it's bad, right? But you don't actually like go and look yourself. You're supposed to believe it. Or schools brainwash your children, right? Or anything. Sorry, anything. Just anything that's like doctrine. This is doctrine. The only way you can beat Donald Trump is to vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But that's not fucking true because there's going to be other people on the ballot. Mm-hmm. So what you need to do is say, I don't want to vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I want to vote third party. And every single person that I've asked has said, I wish I had a better choice.
Well, you know, third parties are
not on the
ballot in every state. The third parties are not on the ballot in every state. They're just
Is there a write-in spot in every?
Yeah, on almost all of them, yes. I've never seen one without a write-in spot. Yeah, but I've never seen anything to show that they're in every state. I think it's well under 40 of them. So it's just not, even if all of the people that were going to vote, you know, and weren't happy with either two of the main middle right or alt right, crazy town, it wouldn't work because that's not available in states. It's just, there's so much work to do. It's so much work to do. And we're never going to get it with a neoliberal, and we're never going to get it. You know, there is talk about revolution, and it's, of course, fear tactics and the fear narrative. I think that we're closer to a fascist revolution than we are to a progressive one. Way farther. We've got to, you know, give it a few more years. It's going to take time. And as people who came before us, like, I'm not saying we compare at all to Noam Chomsky or Professor Howard Zinn or any of the favorites that I talk about often. I think that they are going to be looked back on like the philosophers from before, you know, I mean, as big as, you know, the ancient Greek ones, Socrates, even, you know, they're 100 years, almost 100 years of.
Well, it depends on who writes the history.
Right, it does. But anyone can look up Noam's work for his whole life or Zinn's work for his whole life. And we're living in a time with them. And as all tumultuous times before us, they have a way of bringing on, you know, the Renaissance, you know, came after dark ages, after a very enlightened time. So I don't think that it would be too hard to imagine something bad enough happening, satellites being taken out, whatever. We have Trump longer, and a war is waged, and, you know, who knows? And I'm not trying to use fear at all. I just do think of these things. It's scary. It is. I do have to think, you know, I will be voting. I will be voting in every area. And as of right now, I don't know who I'm voting for. And that's my honest answer. I like Howie, but I don't like all of their policies. But that's okay. I've never liked all of anybody I voted for policies. So if they just most align with mine out of the ones that are up there, out of the ones I'm able to vote for, that's who I will vote for. And I think it will be the first year that I actually vote my conscience, not out of what would be the least bad thing to do. And that's kind of freeing. But it would take an actual miracle for me to vote for Joe Biden. And I think there's just really horrible things that I know. And I'm like, oh, why? But I also know what fascism is for the least among us. It will just, there are towns that have never seen at their courthouse coming through so many evictions. And Biden and Kamala would make that better. I know they would. They would not let it be as bad as it could be with Trump. And so I have to think of other people, and I have to be honest and critical, and I have to really think about this. I mean, maybe I am more serious about it than a lot of this country, and that might be true. But maybe me talking about it gets out and someone else says, hey, maybe I should talk about these things more. So I didn't,
I
as far as the DNC, I didn't hear any policy talk. I heard Warren bring up a policy about public school starting at age 2 to 12. I agree with that, but she didn't say how or anything. So I think it should be age like born. If you need daycare, you have to go back to work. Age born to
Yeah.
through graduate school. But just public education. Yeah.
I here's what I think. If Joe Biden wins, and oh yeah, sorry about my crooked glasses. This is what I want. If Joe Biden wins, I want it to be the most narrow, disappointing victory that the Democratic Party has had, maybe ever.
Yeah, but remember, Hillary had over 3 million more votes and lost, so we have to be strategic. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm in a swing state. So are you, Mac.
Yeah, yes, I am. But it doesn't change my opinion on if he wins.
Right.
I want it to be so fucking narrow because it needs to still send a message that they lost a lot of fucking voters that they could have had. And next time, it's still not a given.
Yeah, we might have another 2016.
Right.
Because they're running the same exact game as they did in 2016.
If he beats Trump, I want them to be worried as fuck. It's like, shit, is Mike Pence next? Because like we barely fucking did this.
Yeah.
Like it has to happen. Or yeah, we do get Pence or Ivanka Trump like soon thereafter.
No,
we're gonna have to. It always happens to where, okay, cool, we got the lesser of these two evils. Well, the next two lesser of evils are worse than the last time. Like
they will be.
This is always the most important election of our country's history. They say it every fucking time because it's always fucking true because it gets worse and worse. Right? So like that's a given. When someone tells you that and tells you how you need to vote, so like, well, yeah, but it's gonna be that way next time. It was like that last time. So like I fucking get it. You can stop saying it.
I mean, what gave us Trump? Neoliberalism. The policies that cater to corporations and multinational corporations over the people in this nation. Now, there's a misinformation that goes on and not all American citizens are getting the same information input. They're just not. So they think certain things are factual and certain things actually are factual in a different way over here. The facts don't actually say that, but they don't know that. And so it's really hard to get people who don't even know that they're wrong to understand that they're wrong. So, but I do think that they're wrong. I think that I want to live in a humanist world. I want no more wars. There's no reason we should be helping tear apart nations or doing coup d'etats or stealing resources, putting in puppet dictators to make sure we can have the most of your resources as much as we want. I don't want that anymore. And I think a lot of people who are on the right don't want that either. None of that sounds good, but they don't understand that it takes actual grassroots and organizing and information and learning how to, I guess, learn media literacy. I wish there was a class that was available for free for every single person. And then there was a way to make CNN and Fox and all the, boomer news channels say, hey, here's a free way to learn education about civics and government and voting. And here's a way to check if something's real. Just here you go. It's free. Media literacy is what we're calling it. That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would. Yes, I want more policy. I do. I want to hear how we're going to do it. Not pretty words, and fluffies and warm feelings. And I mean, after Joe Biden gave his speech last night, I watched his video today from TYT, said, you know, it was like after the 4 years we've been through, it was like Joe Biden gave America a little hug. And that might be true. There might be many of Americans who are not, they're not media literate. They don't make sure that what they're reading has sources that you can actually check. And, you know, I like to check people that I like and trust in and find out, you know, oh, they see it a little bit different than I do. Because everyone has bias. It's good to understand that. Everyone has bias. I have bias. Everyone has bias. And it's going to show up in the stuff that they talk about. Giving America a hug after the 4 years we've been in is great and all, but people are hungry and losing their homes and sick. And we just had a 6-year-old die of coronavirus, COVID-19 today, a 6-year-old. So go ahead, and Trump's Barron, his son Barron, the school he goes to has sent out letters to all of their students. They are not reopening for fall. They will reevaluate and let you know when it's safe. It's not safe. So Trump can keep his baby home safe while telling everyone else to send yours to school. And a 6-year-old died today. I don't want it to be your 6-year-old or anyone else's 6-year-old. I want it to be anyone's Nana or Pop. I just don't. So yeah, we're in a pickle, if you will.
Baby Dill.
No, not that one's good. An icky one, like a sweet relish or something.
Yeah.
Like in a whole moldy jar of it.
Ew.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. A little bit of swamp toe to mix it up.
A good thing ruined 2 ways over. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us on another Friday night of really fun, uplifting chats here at the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism. What week are you on with your hair?
Let's see. Actually, that's a good question. I didn't see today.
Is it about 60?
It's past that.
Past 60?
Yeah, today actually is 62 weeks.
62. Very nice.
It is. Let me turn this, if I turn it up and change the light actually to that.
Oh, okay.
You can see how far the silver goes. But I just don't.
Wow.
Harsh light. Yeah, it's so silver, but I still have that.
Yeah, you got that like,
staying in dark
thing going on.
Yeah. Go figure. Who knew that was under there? I can't wait. I can't wait till it's just all one length. Now I'm okay to go out and stuff for like the first few weeks. I'm like, oh my God. I promise, doing this on purpose. It's supposed to be there. But yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so used to it now. I just can't wait. Stacy keeps telling me to cut it. You know, like right here, I'm like, are you crazy? I will never do that.
No, not yet. Don't do that.
No.
Be patient, Christy.
Yes.
Stacy.
I'm using my inner Jedi.
Yes.
Yes.
Gray Jedi. Silver Jedi.
Silver Jedi. I love it.
Jedi. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have any idea what we want to cover next week?
There's so much I wanted to cover. Just I had like 5 things so for this weekend after just reading, you know, I love history anyway, so it was enjoyable to read about all of this stuff that happened in the past. And I don't know, I'll look through it. So much is happening right now, I probably won't be able to cover any of those. They didn't win when I was choosing 2 out of the 5, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right.
We'll wait and see who does what to who and when.
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So check back next week and figure out what we have figured out. Till then,
stay humanist for God's sake.
for God's sake.